Welcome to Cinemaholics. I'm John Negroni. I'm your co-host for the main show, and I'm here to do a quick instant take of the new film, The Wild Robot. Will Ashton and I will hopefully have a chance to give that one a full review in the coming future, but for now, I'm just going to tell you my light, spoiler-free reactions to the film coming right out of the theater. As usual, I'm not going to get into any plot details, really, just going to be very general with it. Nothing you wouldn't see in the trailer, for example, which I actually haven't seen the trailer, so I guess I can't really judge it that accurately, but I'll do my best, of course, to keep this light and simple for those of you who might be interested in this new film. So, The Wild Robot, it is based on a series of books by Peter Brown. I'll admit I've never read these books myself, but I've heard they're quite good. And this is a new film from DreamWorks. DreamWorks, which has been on a bit of a roll lately. Puss in Boots: The Last Witch, The Bad Guys. They've been putting out decent stuff, movies that people have been enjoying quite a bit. They have this new, I think, take on 3D animation that is definitely exciting for a lot of people. It's something that I guess you could say Disney sort of attempted with Wish, and it didn't quite work out. I don't know if there is a universally accepted name for this style of animation. I know there are some contenders out there. I think of it myself, just internally to myself, as sketch motion animation, because it kind of incorporates hand-drawn 3D, but also stop motion animation kind of all together. And it looks kind of sketchy, like not sketchy in a bad way, obviously, but it's, sketch like a drawing, but it's still 3D. So that's why I find it pretty interesting myself. The director here and writer is Chris Sanders. Chris Sanders, who's, made a lot of knockout hits over the years. He co-wrote Lilo and Stitch, for example, How to Train Your Dragon, The Croods. Guy's been around for a while, but this is his latest since The Call of the Wild, which I'll admit I never watched The Call of the Wild. That was that Harrison Ford Disney Plus live action movie. Yeah, whatever. Point is, we have Chris Sanders coming back from doing a live action film here. I don't think he's done anything since 2020, if I'm not mistaken, with The Wild Robot. So here he is. He was also the voice of Stitch, by the way. I can't leave that out. But anyway, so The Wild Robot, this is a fascinating kind of movie. For me, it's not that it came out of nowhere, but I definitely didn't have the sense based on the marketing and some of the buzz and, what I was hearing from people leading up to TIFF, that this was going to be all that special. I think in the back of my mind, I subconsciously put the movie in this mode, like this world of like, this is a run gone wrong, or, this is just one of those like animated movies that has like a Baymax type main character, and there's nothing about it that seemed immediately remarkable to me about the movie. I didn't watch the trailer, but I think I saw like edges of the trailer or something. I think I was in a theater when it was playing, but I just wasn't paying attention. So that's obviously on me. I wasn't paying attention to the movie, so I probably should have been a little bit more, I think, aware and more, observant to see this movie coming. So that's definitely on me. But the movie itself, I am curious about the novel series, because this is a pretty well-written film. It's following a robot that, again, is basically like Baymax from Big Hero 6, if you recall. This helper robot that's programmed to complete tasks and help people. But what ends up happening is, for whatever reason, the robot is in this shipping box, a FedEx plane or something like that. Apparently it went down, and the box opens up, and the robot shows up on this island full of wild animals and becomes a wild robot, trying to figure out what to do because its programming didn't account for the wilderness. Like that's basically the tagline, if you will, for this thing. And of course, as you can imagine, this is a movie about the family you choose, right? It's about community. It's about characters coming together under unusual circumstances. It's trying to tackle this message about how difficult parenthood can be. It's trying to tackle things about, honestly, like for kids who were adopted. I think that this is the kind of movie that is really for them, because there's a whole plot point about the robot essentially adopting a little goose. And it's cute. It's very cute. This is a funny movie. I'm not going to say it's like every scene has a big laugh out loud moment, but I would clock about maybe at least 4 jokes in this that really got me laughing, that I found very funny. It's like every once in a while, the comedic timing or the writing of a joke just is unusually very good. But what I think is going to invest more people in this film than anything is just the heartwarming nature of it. It's a very sweet movie. It's a very fast-paced movie. This thing moves. I mean, the first 30 minutes, you start to wonder, like, is this a short film? Because they are just kind of like moving and moving and moving. And it really suits, I think, the attention span of a kid for sure, but also bored adults who are a little bit like, all right, let's get this going. And I'll admit, when this thing was in its first few minutes, I was like, this feels very Pixar. This feels very like they're trying to take from some of the Pixar short films. They're kind of doing a Wall-E thing, right? Because the whole thing with Wall-E was this robot that its programming is, telling it to do something in an environment that has totally changed because of human stuff, right? So that's the whole premise of Wall-E. And this, of course, is different, but it's kind of, it has that same type of storytelling at its heart. But again, yeah, it's a movie that I gotta say, for DreamWorks especially, it's different from DreamWorks. It kind of reminds me of How to Train Your Dragon, when that movie came out. That didn't really feel like a lot of the DreamWorks movies before it, right? Before that, you had things like Shrek, obviously, Kung Fu Panda, I think Monsters vs. Aliens, and DreamWorks was still kind of finding its brand identity. It still is in a lot of ways. I quick little side rant, but the little DreamWorks like prologue thing that they do where they show the logo, they could do so much better. It's not that it's bad, but it's just, I don't know, it's not that imaginative. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like the Fisher boy just kind of goes around and it's, here are the movies, and come on, you could, DreamWorks, you could find your version of like the Marvel comic pages or something that fits you, that it's your thing. I don't know. That maybe that's an unpopular opinion. I don't know, but anyway, that is a point in the movie's favor, The Wild Robot, that it doesn't feel like a DreamWorks movie, which to me is a great thing. What I like about DreamWorks is when the movies kind of do different things and they aren't trying to be like a Pixar where everything has sort of a similar branding kind of feel and look to them. Not that that's always the case with Pixar, but a lot of the time it is. Like everybody has their set expectation for what happens in a Pixar movie. I like that sometimes DreamWorks can be a little bit more, maybe, let's say, adventurous in terms of how experimental it can be with different genres and types of characters and totally different worlds that don't have to adhere to a very basic formula. And obviously the downside of that is that sometimes DreamWorks movies are very unbalanced and you never quite know if the next one's going to be good or not, right? And so there is a little bit of like a risk there, obviously. And I'm happy to report this is one of those really good DreamWorks films. I would say that I wouldn't be surprised if this won Best Animated Feature at the Oscars. It ticks a lot of those boxes. I think its main competition is going to be Inside Out 2, but here's the thing. Inside Out 2 is a sequel, and sequels aren't typically favored in most categories at the Oscars, at least, especially when it has the number in the title. And that's not a hard and fast rule, obviously. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but I think this movie is, it might not be as good as Inside Out 2, mind you. I think Inside Out 2 is quite great. This movie, I think, is definitely in competition because it's a lean kind of movie. Again, good pacing, and it's so heartwarming. I mean, some of the emotional moments in this, I'd say the last frame of this movie kind of, got my gander going a little bit. And it's just a sweet ride. I would say that in terms of the script especially, I'm really impressed. Sanders is known for mainly being a collaborator, usually somebody who co-directs and co-writes with other people, and more power to him. But in this case, for his solo outing here, I think he really nailed it. I think that he really found a nice balance with these characters. Some of the messaging is a little treacly. You're going to see a lot of stuff coming. But I'll say the movie surprised me where it counted. I would say that the movie found ways to make this feel like a journey, to feel a lot of the emotional moments earned, so that I didn't walk away from it kind of being like, oh, that was such a shortcut in terms of the narrative. I feel like the way we got there was a little bit, screenwriter-y, like they're just kind of writing things to write things. But no, yeah, I would say that combined with a very good voice cast, that this is one of those situations, at least for me, where they're going through the voice cast at the end of the movie and they're showing you the character next to the name. There is not a single one that I saw coming except for Matt Berry. That's the only one else I'll give away. But everybody else, I'm just like, wait, really? That was oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that was them. All right. That was the voice cast. I believe you. But I don't know. Sometimes I think voice cast for animated movies can either be extremely obvious or like not obvious at all. So you're like, yeah, there really was no point to like spend all this money on that, very well-known celebrity to be a voice actor, except, I mean, they did a good job. It's not like they did a bad job. Maybe it helps with the marketing. I'll admit that I find a lot of that stuff very opaque. I mean, who is looking at the voice cast for these animated movies and being like, that's how I know that this is going to be terrific? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I see trailers for animated movies and it'll show me like 20 familiar actors and I'll be like, but the movie still looks terrible. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, okay. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. For now, though, that's my instant take on The Wild Robot. It's very good. It's a good movie. It's definitely a crowd pleaser. It's one that I think families are going to really enjoy. Great for kids. This movie has, it's funny because like maybe younger kids might find some of it a little scary because there are just times when animals straight up die in this movie and it's like shown. And I think most kids are going to find that funny and adults are going to be like, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that, but okay. But maybe younger kids might be a little, like if your kid is a big fan of PETA, I don't know, maybe they're going to be a little annoyed and not like that. I could see that happening. But yeah, otherwise, this is a safe one for kids in terms of, I think, safe in the sense that it's a good message. It's got a good heart in its shoulders. I think adults are going to be able to bear with, maybe some of the, I guess, more sort of like formulaic stuff, but there's not that much of it in this. It's no Lilo and Stitch if I have to compare it to something, but it's its own thing, and that's kind of what counts. And I'm a fan. I enjoyed it. I would definitely watch it again. I think I would enjoy it even more the second time, quite honestly. And I didn't talk much about the animation. Most of it's great. There are times when I kind of refer to this myself as sketch motion animation. There are times when it's not very smooth. It's not very seamless. It's something that I also found a little bit troublesome with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish rather. And I'll take it because I think it is more inspired as an art style compared to some of the 3D animated stuff. And I like that it's allowing animators more freedom to show movement and flow. So there's nothing egregiously bad at all about the animation here. I would just say that, there were some wrinkles that, maybe could have been smoothed out, but nothing that took me out of the movie or made me feel like they weren't putting in the effort. You feel the effort. The effort is there, especially when it comes to the robot itself. It's not the best design in the world, but what makes the robot come alive is the voice performance from Lupita Nyong'o. I know I was ranting about voices before, but the way that the robot has nice little touches, it kind of comes off as like the Iron Giant at times, where like sometimes its body parts can come off and do their own thing independently. There's a whole lore behind how the robot works, and the movie does a pretty decent job of explaining and being consistent about it. There are some things with it where it really stretches imagination, but nothing too bad. Nothing that I would fuss about myself. Maybe in the second time, it'll be a little bit more distracting, but for the time being, glad I watched it. And if you're looking forward to seeing The Wild Robot yourself, it's coming out pretty soon. It's actually going to be hitting, I believe, wide release on September 27th. So really coming up. And it's a tight 107 minutes. And so that's great news for those of you who don't want to be in the theater for over 2 hours. I genuinely at one point was like, is this longer than I think? Because there's so much happening. But I'm not bored or anything. So I was curious, because I didn't know the running time going in. So there is that. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Will and I are going to be talking about Beetlejuice on the next thing. That's what's going to hit the feeds next. Now we're finally going to have a conversation about Beetlejuice and why it's such a big hit at the box office. So until next time, thanks for listening to Cinemaholics. Do all the normal things like join in the Discord, leave us a voicemail if you want to reach out to us, all that stuff in the show notes, and we'll see you next time. Bye.